sessions, sort of half hour each, or more or less. And our first speaker is Nathan McKinney, and he was a line chief with the 727 Squadron of the 451st Bomb Group. And all I can say about Nathan is he probably got started with the 451st just about as early as anyone. Did you have maybe one plane at the time?
Yeah, we had only one down at Pine Castle, Florida.
One plane.
Hello.
And but he and Sedge Hill both were part of that all-important group of keeping the planes flying. And since I was in the 727th Squadron and was a direct beneficiary of their good work, I'm going to turn it over to you, Nathan.
Okay, let me get up there and make these people suffer a little bit. Let me get my glasses on, a little old. Late in the year of 1943, they formed the 15th Air Force. Before that, every aircraft was in the 12. To give you some idea, what went into the 15th, 15 B-24 groups went into it. 6 B-17 groups went into it. That's what it was. After that, the 451st Bomb Group, led in Joy Dale Colley. That's where we started. It rained. It seemed like it rained every day, and pretty soon the runway got where we couldn't use it. I think we flew up, did about 20 missions there before it got that bad. And the 727 went to fly with the 450th Bomb Group at Cherokee. We flew with them, I guess, about 20 missions. One night, the squadron commander got me out of bed and said, "Let me tell you what happened today." By the way, the tail sections, every group had a different color on their tail for the fighters to know who they were. And the 450s had white on their tail, and they were, of course, they called them cottontails. But he said, "Let me tell you something, Gary. So I want all that white off them damn tails." He said, "Let me tell you what happened today. One of the 450th airplanes got severe damage, and it dropped its gear. Anytime you drop your gear, you're surrendered. And a German fighter come in to fly him, take it down, you know, and damn if they didn't shoot it down." He said, "For God's sakes, get that white off our tail. We don't want to be a part of this nest, because the Germans are going to be after that 450 or something fierce now." It took all night to do it. God, it was cold. With a little 1-quart dang spray can, you know, it took forever to do it. But anyway, we got that done that night. I don't ever know what happened to the 450s. I know they took a beating after that. And pretty soon we got a airfield of our own at Castelluccia. The 450th Bomb Group did. And that was a godsend. And the 727th Squadron, their taxi strip and revetments were run parallel to the runway out there, which was good. The tower was right in our backyard. By the way, the call on the tower was pickup. Whenever the was called in, the pickup tower requested, you know, this and that. Let me look through my notes a little bit here where I give you something.
That's good.
But since we were so close to the tower, I was required to have a fleet track up there every mission when the aircraft were coming in, because sometimes they were so low on fuel, they thought one of them might die on the runway, and we were to get out there right quick and drag it off. But if you don't know what a cleat track is, it looks like a tank without the gun turret on it. That's what it looks like. If you ever go through the museum in Ohio there, where at Patterson, they've got one in there. It's been redone. It looks good. When the aircraft come back after a mission, being the line chief, my first job was to go over them from head to toe, right down to all the battle. The group headquarters at the S4 section, they wanted that battle damage immediately, so I do it, and I give it to my clerk, and he'd type it up and I'd go over to him. And later on, I had to give them the number of aircraft I'd have ready for going the next day. We had one aircraft that called in, wasn't one of mine, called in, said they were, their hydraulic system was shot out, and they had no brakes. So I thought it was quite clever of the crew what they did. They opened the waste windows where the 50-gallon guns are back there, and they tied their parachute to each one of them. As soon as that aircraft's on the ground, they pulled them and dropped those chutes off. That's the first time we ever seen drag chutes. And it stopped them. I thought that was pretty clever, that crew. I'm going to give you a few stats here on the B-24 that I don't know if you know about it. But they built 19,256 of them. They built more B-24s than the aircraft in the Air Force. And of those they built 286 of them. They were still B-24. They named them C-87s. They made cargo airplanes out of them and tankers out of them. But every one of them went to India. The tanker would carry 2,900 gallons of gas. And they used them to fly the hump, is what they did from India into China. That's what those aircraft were for. But one of those aircraft went to Winston Churchill as a passenger aircraft. He wanted one that would fly long distance, so he got it. The B-24 engine, B-24 had R-1830 65 engines on it. To me, they were the best that's ever been made. They were made by Pratt & Whitney, of course. And the first one was, the 1830 engine was built in 1930. And let me tell you what, that was one of the most fabulous engines. They built 176,618 of them. They weren't all go to the B-24s, by the way. They went on 30 different aircraft. And I'll tell you one thing, that where I lived in Waco, they had an airport out there, and they'd have a static display out there. They had a B-24 come out there. I was sitting on the patio, and that rascal took off, and I come alive. I thought, God Almighty, that's a sound that you'll never forget. And sure enough, it was a B-24. And during the time we were over there, the 50th Air Force got 345,000 tons of bombs that they dropped. And up on the front there were some GIs. They'd see the B-24 and 70s go over, and they said, God dang, those Air Forces got it easy. They got it. Here we are down this dang mud. So I guess that supervisor up there got his belly full of it. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to send a couple of you back to fly with them. So lo and behold, we come to our squadron to fly. And they flew on it. And so I made certain that I was down there when they come back that afternoon. They're a little pale. They started lighting their cigarette. I don't know, they must have got popped over there. Their hands were scorched up like that, you know. And so I lit their cigarette for them. But they said, my God, that was like coming through the side of that airplane, and there's no foxholes up there to hide in. I said, my God, I have no idea what these people went through. So they decided that they'd have enough. They're going to go back to other people. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I said, man, that's terrible to fly with them people. They really suffer. But I had a maintenance officer. There was a police tank outfit right close to us there, about a mile and a half. And somebody come up here and told him, said, you know something, there's a Chrysler engine out there in a crate. So he got the welder he said, get a truck and go down there, back up to that thing like you owned it. Said, holler at them poles over to come over and help you. So they did. And he brought it back to the squadron, and of course the engineer said, take it down. There's a creek about a mile from there. Take it down and hide it. I thought, you don't hide it for. But anyway, I knew. So the next day that place was crawling with empty. Look at that damn engine, you know. It wasn't to be had. But anyway, we had no, what you want to do with it is put a generator on it and give it some lights. He did that. He used a governor out of this fly for a prop governor to govern it with, which worked out just fine. And he had all kind of wire. I don't know where the hell he got all that wire, but he did, you know. But he said, you know, we didn't steal that engine. We just borrowed it, you know. We give it back to him when it's all over. That's about all I've got to tell you here. Unless you got a question you want to ask, I'll try my best to answer you. That's here.
When you repainted the tails emblems to remove the white.
We moved that white off, but man, we didn't want to be a part of that because the Germans were going to go after them people that had white tail after they shot that German fighter down. I don't know why they did that.
So were you responsible for then determining the new tail emblem, or how did that?
No, they we were right away. We got away from there. They stayed with that oil, but we got down to Castanucci. We had our own color on there. See, every group had a different color. The fighters, that's what they looked at. You know, they knew who they was following, who they were supposed to be checking.
But my dad made the comment, he really appreciated flying with the 450th after that.
Yeah. Did he remember it?
Yeah, he was in the 455th, and he said the fighters would just go right by him looking for those cottontails.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you the truth. Man, my smart commander was just beside himself with it. But God dang, it was cold that night. He said, get that white off all our tape. All the airplanes were autographed in those days.
Yeah.
It was till late in the war until we started getting unpaid airplanes. But we got that off our airplane. We didn't vote. But anytime you drop the gear, that tell the enemy you're surrendering. They come right in on you. They want you to go down the land, you know. So that's what happened to it. But go ahead.
You had good things to say about those engines. How many hours could they go before you had to overhaul them?
Well, I'll tell you what, we didn't get too many to overhaul. But anyway, that engine produced, it was 14 cylinders, produced 1,200 horsepower. That's what it did, see. But they were the best engines that God ever put on that airplane. They were good ones. We never had too much trouble with those things. But one thing that I used to stress with my people since I was a line chief, God dang, watch those tires. We had PSP on the runways and then the revetments. And they would cut those tires, and I didn't want one going down the runway and with a low bomb and blow out, but I didn't get them all. So one day, one of my birds, tire blew out, the gear wiped, and then that thing ball of fire. I knew it was going to happen, but that was critical. I had 6 or 7 of them built up all the time. But I'll tell you what, I put 3 men to building up engines. It takes so long. If you get them in the crate, it takes you 14, 15 hours to change an engine. I said, I can't stand that. So I had 3 men that built up at least 2 engines or 3 engines. But I'll tell you, anytime one of them bedded in with the engine, the prop didn't strike the ground, man, I went after them engines and take them off and ran all over them. Then all we had is 4 bolts right quick and I hook up a few and man, that airplane ready to go again. They were a godsend. Anything else?
Nathan, the crews always wondered, how did you determine that a plane need to be withdrawn from service?
I thought you'd ask that. Well, one time, one of my birds come in and they couldn't get the gear down. They tried everything they could to get the gear down. They wouldn't come down. So the squadron commander and the operations officer said, well, if it bellies in, it's going to be lost anyway. So he told them to gather a little altitude, put it on automatic pilot, open them bomb bay doors and get out of it. It's headed towards the Adriatic though. And I watched 10 shoots come out of it, and all of them come out, all of them come down and say, I don't know where that airplane landed. We hoped it landed in the Adriatic, you know. Of course, we never found out about that. Another, we had one that, 88, that's a German aircraft gun. The best one that's ever made in the world. They had the best. And that shell hit the #2 turbo. Every air engine has a turbo on it where they go to altitude, otherwise they couldn't get up there. And it hit that thing and it pushed that turbo right out through the top of the wing, and I don't know why it didn't blow that wing off, but it did. The hole was about that big from the bottom to the top, and it come back. Of course, that airplane never flew again, but I could not believe that, and why that thing didn't explode is beyond me. But that's that's 2 examples of it. But I'll tell you what, when they did that, then we wouldn't have to have engines. It really expedited an engine change. Anything else? It's yours.
Thank you.
Okay.